Good afternoon, everybody. Lovely to see you today. I have the great pleasure of having a gentleman called James Williams with me this afternoon. Now, James is a retirement reset referee, which is a very interesting profession. So, James, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm James Williams. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago in the sunny Caribbean. Um, Paul introduced me as the retirement reset referee, and I chose that novel name because everybody who introduces themselves online is called a coach, and I wanted to separate myself from the pack in terms of how I impact um, retirees from my point of view, because I'm a retiree myself, and I have found that a lot of the information online to help retirees are focused specifically in one direction. I wanted to take it in another direction, and so I chose a name that reflects that difference.
That's a good one. I like it. So, James, tell me, as a retiree yourself, what have you found most challenging in your retirement?
What was challenging for me, and I found that I had a way of getting around it, was that I retired in 2018. And in 2017, 1 year before retiring into what I felt would have been, a tremendous experience, having worked hard, I got a cancer diagnosis. I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and they said it was aggressive. 5 years later, I'm here, alive and well, and I would have used some protocols, a mix of protocols that would have helped me over that. I think what was critical for me, though, is my mindset. I did not make it overwhelm me, and I do not think I could take all the credit for that mindset. It was me understanding that I had to travel this road literally by myself, but I needed some spiritual perspective to help me in that, and that was a significant reason why it didn't overwhelm me. And still, I am comfortable in my skin knowing that that was the diagnosis, but I'm alive and well.
And you look fantastic, I have to say. I've I mean, right now, I personally have a very dear friend who I've known for a long time, and she has cancer and she's being treated. And I saw her a couple of weeks ago, first time I'd seen her in many years, and she was very positive, very positive. But I always think that the hardest part about being positive is when you're on your own, because when you're in company of others, there's a natural energy and you're having some fun and a talk. But I always think it must be very hard when there's nobody else around. So tell me, how did you cope with the being on your own, knowing that you had that condition?
Fortunately for me, I grew up and still live in a rural area, and being in the country, one of the things all around you is greenery, and I'm a farmer by practice. And as a professional, I was employed in the Ministry of Agriculture for 41 years. So agriculture is literally a part of my DNA. And so I stayed active. I continue to be active. And in fact, I refer to my garden as my therapy place, because it's there I process all the thoughts that I have. And because I'm busy, I do not give myself time enough to brood over something that is a challenge.
Very powerful words. I know my partner is a very keen gardener, and I know many people. I'm not a keen gardener myself, but I aspire to be so in the future. But many people I hear that love gardening, they say the same thing, that it's very therapeutic. It gets them outside when they're fiddling with their plants and they're cutting and they're pruning and they're taking up the weeds. It gives their mind space to wander, and because it's something that's not too complicated, it's just quite mechanical. And they say it's really good therapy. And of course, just being at one with nature, direct contact with nature, which is what mankind has been doing for thousands of years. It's very, very healthy. So it's interesting to hear you say that. It's a very commonly held belief. Right. So I'm going to move on to the next question now, but this will be edited out. Okay. Um, so James, I'm very curious. So what was it about your retirement experience that made you want to share your message with the world?
In fact, I never felt that I had a message to share until sometime during the pandemic. I was introduced to an online teacher, and his approach was literally taking people wherever they were in their experience and helping them to share their experiences and finding a way to monetize that experience. And while the monetization aspect of it interested me, because as a retiree in the Caribbean, average person doesn't make enough money to be terribly comfortably. But what impressed me was that I literally could create a legacy of sorts by sharing my experience with other people who may have similar challenges. And so I took that seriously. It wasn't a 1-year program with him. And I learned some techniques that I felt I probably could implement. And funny enough, I thought of using my 41 years experience in the field of agriculture as my message. And then I realized that I knew only tropical agriculture. And if I had to have a wide audience, I needed to have something that was appealing to a lot more people.
Sure.
And then I latched on to the fact that here you in retirement. You have a challenge. You found a way to work on your mindset to deal with it. And then there are other things that people may take for granted. And so you could put that into a package and present it. And that's where I am.
Very interesting. So James, if people would like to get in touch with you, what would be the best way for them to do this?
At this point, I'm rolling out a program that would speak to those challenges that I call the 5 trauma triggers. No matter where you are in your retirement experience, there are only 5 possible things that could affect you. Whatever you choose in terms of numbers, they fall into 5 categories, and I call them your 5 trauma triggers. They don't have to affect each person the same way, but they are all there. And so that program, I use my current email, jaewilly@gmail.com as my point of contact. So it's jwilly@gmail.com. And anybody could feel free to touch base with me and we could take it from there.
Fantastic. We'll make sure that we include those in the description text alongside the video. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So James, thank you very much for joining me today. That was really interesting. I'm sure there's many retirees out here that will find what you have to say very interesting, and I encourage them to get in touch with you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you and bye.
Bye. Good. You happy with that?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Cool.
That sounds good.
Excellent.
Right.
Good. So
so Paul, what's let me see the questions that I haven't gone into the chat to determine what the questions are. So let me take a look at them.
sure. Yeah. Have a sip of coffee.
So what prompted you to create your webinar mastery program?
I forgot to put, I didn't number them all. The first question should have been asking me about my background. And the second one should be what prompted you to create your webinar mastery program. I forgot to number the first one, but you know what's going on. So
yeah, I'll start with that. What's your background?
sure.
What advice? And 3, who should use webinars? Yeah, so I'm back.
Okay.
All right. So let me settle myself as you did so that I could get you ready for.
Of course.
So I'm ready.
Okay.
Hi, good day, everybody. I'm James Williams from the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago to be exact, and I have in my presence somebody whom I met online. You know, the online space is so many and varied that you meet interesting people, and Paul Jordan happens to be one of those people I met. We touched base almost immediately. And while we were having a little chat online, he introduced me to his partner who happened to have some Trinidad experience as well. She lived in Trinidad for some time. And I think that cemented the relationship. We haven't known each other for long, but I've known him long enough to feel here is somebody who I could learn from, and we could share, bits and pieces from one another. Um, Paul, tell me what's your background like? I know you online in the online space, but what's your background?
Sure. Hi, James. Well, my background, I suppose, if we look back at my career, I started off studying electrical and electronic engineering a long time ago. And I moved into IT at an early stage, writing code and software engineering. And then I moved into project management, software project management, which was really fun, very interesting, very exciting. Um, about 10 years ago, 9 years ago, something like that, the company I worked for went into administration. And shortly after, I decided that I would set up my own agency, recognizing that a lot of the IT skills that I had were very applicable in the online marketing world. Websites, managing people, video creation, all of the technical stuff was very second nature to me. So I recognized that I had some good transferable skills, and got into internet marketing probably about 4 years ago or something like that. So in terms of personal background, I live in Plymouth in Devon in the UK. I've got three young adult children, all of whom have flown the nest. I'm in the process of, I'm going to be moving house soon. My partner lives in another part of the country called Cornwall, and I'm going to be moving house quite soon. So there's going to be a lot of disruption in my life in the next month or so, but it's all good. So that's me in a nutshell.
Okay, so what prompted you to I heard your background, and your background is very interesting, from engineering to software, and I mean that so many moving parts, and yet
Yeah.
still you could find a niche in the online space. What prompted you to get into what you call webinar mastery? Because there are so many facets to online business.
There really are. You're absolutely right, James. And through my agency, my digital agency, last year, there were quite a few people that had contacted me to help them with their marketing. And a common theme was that I met several people who wanted to run webinars. They'd been on their own business coaching programs and mentoring programs, and they'd been advised that running a webinar would be great for developing their business. And this was what I was finding, that it was typically people such as coaches, counselors, therapists, those kinds of professional people, all of whom recognize the benefit of running a webinar. But the common theme that I was hearing was that when people looked into starting to do a webinar, they got very overwhelmed because they think, gosh, I've got to choose a webinar platform. I've got to create a landing page. I've got to create a video, possibly a video presence, an email sequence, etc., etc., etc. And the common message was that I didn't know where to start. I got stuck. I didn't know which webinar platform to choose. So seeing this common theme, I thought, well, obviously there's a demand for people that want to run webinars. So I decided to put together my webinar mastery program that teaches people how to set up all the tech, or if they don't want to set up the tech, we can do that for them. But very importantly, is teaching people how to actually structure the content of the webinar. Because it's one thing to put together a series of slides to teach the subject matter, but there's some special sales techniques to blend into the presentation so that, as well as teaching the subject matter, people are actually selling their services. Because the whole point of a webinar is to get people to sign up with you and make a purchase or book a call, book an appointment. And a lot of people don't know how to do that because they've never been taught how to sell. So we teach people how to structure the webinar content in order to get a good conversion at the end and build an email sequence to follow up with their clients and nurture them towards a sale longer term.
Is it true to say then that if somebody comes to you with probably brilliant content but do not know the know-how, that you are literally a one-stop shop to the point where they could make their sales pitch?
Absolutely, James. And I find that the people that I've helped so far, some people have been very tech savvy. There was one lady in Germany who I helped. I taught her how to create webinars, and she's now proceeded to put together her own series of webinars, which she's then turned into an online training course, which is another thing that we recommend for people, because that's like a product that you can package up and sell for passive income. Whereas other people, they don't like doing any of it. So we have a done for you service. So to summarize, we kind of have a done for you service, a done by you service, or a done with you service. So for the people that want to do some parts of the webinar but not other parts, we work together to make it all happen.
Just to be very concise in terms of who should avail themselves of your services. Who really at this point in whatever point they are on their life journey, who should really be checking you out for your services?
Yeah.
Who needs a webinar?
Well, that's a very good question. So stepping back, I mean, webinars are used extensively in many business types. I specialize with helping the kind of people that are offering a service to help other people directly, such as coaches, therapists, and counselors, those kinds of people. There are other uses for webinars, but those are the kind of areas I focus on, because these kind of people, they need to get in front of the world. So I've had therapy myself for various reasons, like weight loss and so forth. And I know that these people do an amazing job. Once they engage with you, they can actually turn your life around. They can do incredible things, but they're not so good at business. They're not always so good at selling. And with a webinar,
Sure.
this is a brilliant opportunity for them to get in front of a larger number of people and tell them about their services. It gives people the opportunity to see them in action, because these services are quite intimate and people want to get to know that person before they spend money with them.
Yes.
And traditionally, a lot of people might have an initial free consultancy call to get to know the therapist or get to know the coach, and then they might not like that person and not come back. And also, I find a lot of people are very poor at following up. They might give away a free consultation, but they don't follow. They don't, in a week's time, they don't ring up the person and say, "Oh, hi, we had a consultation last week. What did you think? Would you like to book some business with me?" They don't do that. And of course, an email sequence can do that for them. So I find that people that want to fill their calendar with appointments for coaching, relationship counseling, hypnotherapy, smoking cessation, all of those kinds of things, webinars are a brilliant tool, because they can get in front of a lot of people, get their calendar filled with bookings, and think about packaging what they offer as an online course, which they can then sell for extra revenue.
Paul, as we talk, I'm more and more convinced that you have a client sitting right in front of you. Because so much of what you say resonates with myself as an average person online, not knowing how to navigate that space. And it feels good to know that you have something to share. But it's only when you make the decision to share, you realize that there are so many moving parts and you suffer from overwhelm. And it feels good to hear somebody explain what their abilities are, but not only that, explain what their clients' challenges are, because sometimes people will sell you on what to do, but it's only when you get involved with them you realize that while they sell what they could do doesn't really apply to you. So you
Sure.
seem to be a good fit for people who have challenges like myself. What advice would you give anybody who is looking at this conversation and probably having some thoughts in their mind as to whether they should invest in your expertise?
Yeah, I suppose the obvious thing is I'd be very happy to offer them a free call just to give some free advice and find out what they're trying to achieve. No obligation whatsoever. Just I like helping people. But secondly, to get used to speaking, I find a lot of people they haven't done public speaking before. They've never presented a set of slides. They've never stood in front of an audience, and it's quite surprising when you get talking to people how many people are very uncomfortable with it. But what's more surprising and quite amusing, and I include myself here, is that when we stand up to practice on our own with nobody else around, nobody in the room, when we stand up on our own for the first time, when we hear ourselves speaking out loud, it's quite uncomfortable. It's quite an alien experience because we haven't done it before. And people are almost afraid of their own voice. It's quite funny. So I encourage people to get some written material, be it a magazine or a book, and stand up. And the standing up part is very important because that improves your energy and your posture and gives you confidence. Stand up in front of a mirror and just practice speaking. Learn to articulate the voice, become a good presenter, because the content has to be important and relevant to the audience. But if we think back to the days of school, I remember for me personally, the teachers that were the best were the ones that entertained the classroom. It would be the teacher who could be very strict, but also be very passionate about his subject, maybe throw in a few jokes, keep the classroom engaged. And the subject was almost irrelevant because the way that they spoke and the way they delivered their content was so engaging. It's so compelling to watch. They were educating and entertaining. And we have this new term called edutainment. So people should practice animating their voice, smiling a lot, and being a good presence on camera, having a bit of charm, a bit of charisma, because no matter what words come out of your mouth, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And if you're earning the trust of your audience, they get to know you, they get to like you, they get to trust you. You're going to draw them in because they're going to grow to like you. They like the way you present, and those will eventually convert into paying customers. So going back to what you said, stand in front of a mirror, practice reading, get good at it, film yourself if you're able to, and then review your video, which will always make people squirm the first time around. But when you see yourself in action, you can spot the mistakes that you're making, and then you can correct those and get better and better. So that's a good starting point. Long answer.
No, it's long, but it makes a whole lot of sense. And what impresses me about your offering is that this is not to knock people of technology, but generally people who are good at technology are not as good as relating to people. And that's that bit that you just mentioned there about what you do to engage your audience. Those things are things that the average tech person may not be able to enunciate because that's not where their strength is.
Sure.
But I think you have a good marriage in terms of how you deal with this thing of the technology with respect as well as the link with how people respond and react. And I think that's a good mix that somebody who is looking online would want to get, and you present that so well.
Thank you. It's good
Paul,
to hear.
in closing, yes, you wanted to say something.
No, I was just saying thank you for saying those kind words, James. I appreciate it.
Yes, couldn't help because they are the truth. How could somebody make contact with you? I think especially encouraging is the fact that they do not have to dive in with their wallets one time. They could speak to you for free and get an idea as to how they will relate to you, because people relate to people who they know, they like, and they trust, and a free consultation opens the door.
Sure. Well, certainly if people Google Paul Jordan webinars, they'll find lots of search results on page 1 of Google. On Facebook, if they look for Webinar Mastery, they'll find my program and me. What I'm hoping to do is put a booking link to my calendar in the description text below the video here so that people can click through. If they want to book a call, they can pick a convenient time for them and we can have a chat.
Well, that sounds like a plan for me, and I certainly believe it's a plan for anybody who would have been looking at this and would have been, you know, floundering in the sea of so many experts. And sometimes you trust your problems to people who claim to be experts, and you don't get the results you're looking for. I think that I have found somebody who would give me some good help, and I trust that people who are looking on would also feel the same way. And good luck to you, Paul.
Thank you very much, James. It's been a pleasure to be here today. Thank you.
Yes.
Super. Right. I'll stop the recording.